Most people think making money online is difficult. It takes many years, you need a ton of experience, and you're gonna be grinding it out for multiple years before you can actually do it. When you do it, you're meant to have a huge audience. It's meant to be this low, cheap ticket product that's just gonna sit on the internet and generate thousands of dollars online. But that's actually not the case. For the past couple of years at Vox, we've been doing this from a complete different approach, a complete different model that's shaken up a lot of content businesses and a lot of podcasts to almost break every single limiting belief there is around making money online. I've been doing this from a very small audience. I've been doing this from a tiny email list, a tiny Instagram, a tiny LinkedIn, and a tiny podcast in the grand scheme of things compared to your big and famous content creators online. And the reason why you think this is because it's often been engineered that we need to have a big audience and wait and have all the trust in the world to be able to sell a product. Now, that is only a percentage of actually the reality of what's actually happening. And I'm going to show you very simple why that is, why the logic is in terms of we think that we need all these things, but then the reality of how to actually make a crazy amount of money online, so much money it almost feels illegal, and how some of the biggest actual entrepreneurs are doing this with tiny, tiny audiences. So I want to look first at the limiting beliefs. So when you think of limiting beliefs, people think, oh, that's not me. I know exactly what I'm doing online. I'm an entrepreneur, I'm a creator, I have a business. But when it comes to actually building a business and building an offer on the back end, a few things start to kick in. The biggest thing that kicks in initially is that you need a huge audience, okay? You need a huge audience. Because you might say, well, Darren, without an audience and a huge audience, how could I possibly sell a product? But the reality is a lot of these big channels, a lot of these big YouTubers, big content creators, they're all broke. And the reason why they're broke is because they built their audience based on vanity, not based on value. They grew these huge audiences based on a bunch of different things that no one actually cares about and doesn't actually help their audience. In other words, they don't solve a specific problem for a very specific user that's easy to find online. The other thing that people really fall into the trap of is saying you need to wait, okay? I will wait until I start to sell a product, service, or give an offer to my audience. Now, if you solve a problem for your audience, you don't need to wait. The whole logic of I'm going to put 2, 3, 4 years into building the goodwill of my audience isn't actually necessary if you can truly help them. And I want to show you clearly how this has been done. We did this as well without even having a website, even having a logo, even having a company. Long days before I started my company, Vox, we were doing this as very much ad hoc because we solved a very painful problem, which was podcasts cannot grow and monetize online. And the other major limiting belief is that you need to sell a lot of units, products, whatever. So a lot of products and something cheap, right? So let's say it's like low ticket, okay? And that can be product or community, right? Because the logic is, well, if I just get 1,000 people in my community and I charge them $100 a month, or I charge them $10 a month, that's gonna make me X amount of thousands of dollars a month, right? But the reality is there is so much headache, there's so much pain in selling low ticket products that you get the worst type of clients that come through, the worst customers, the biggest chargebacks, and the biggest churn. This is the reason why the biggest software companies in the world go bust, because they sell a very low offer or low app, low subscription to their users. And as a result, no one actually sticks around. You don't get any longevity. So having a huge audience, having to wait, and having to sell a bunch of different products at a very low value is not going to help you to make money. What I'm going to show you is a complete different model that we've created, that we've been using for my own business and for multiple different businesses in different industries. This is sales, HR, tech, payroll, health, science, basically every single type of niche and vertical under content businesses. So instead of actually waiting multiple years to try and make money online, we've been following the pain framework. Okay? This pain framework is exactly what we've been using with many of our clients, many of our customers in different niches. And it breaks into 4 different components. The first one, P, is for problem. Okay? What is the painful problem that you solve for a specific user that's easy to find online? So for instance, let's say you help people with sales. You're helping them with their sales team. You're helping them increase their revenue. You're helping them decrease the amount of time it takes for you to be able to actually generate the result. That is a huge problem. Why? Many companies, many startups, many businesses struggle with sales. That is the overarching team that you can come out the gate with your content specifically, and you can go in and solve that problem. That can break down into different niches. So there's a different niche of this. This can break down into different categories. So let's say the niches is, in the niche you might have B2B sales, but in categories it could be tech sales, okay? So B2B tech sales. And this is a painful problem that you're solving. And when you're solving this painful problem, every single thing that you do spins off of that problem. So every piece of content you put out, every word that comes out of your mouth goes back to solving this very specific problem. Now, we've been doing this, looking at how to grow and monetize podcasts. So I haven't even talked about social media platform. I haven't talked about any of that yet. Honestly, guys, that stuff doesn't even matter. But if you can go back to solving this problem, which is super important. And all the different aspects in here fall into 3 different categories: health, wealth, and relationships, okay? So let's draw it. Within here, within the problem, we're able to break this down into wealth. So go into health and relationships. And relationships. Okay, so these are the big buckets. These are the big buckets that you can solve problems in. So a problem that solves a wealth problem is very important, right? So how to increase revenue, how to save time, how long it takes you to increase revenue. But also there's a flip side. Because if my problem that I can help people with is increase their revenue, well then that actually improves their health, oddly enough, because it makes them less stressed, it gives them more time back, they can hang out with their family, they can go to their kids' piano lessons. So we're solving the wealth problem, but we're also solving the health problem. And that's important in the positioning of the content. The other side of it is relationships. Because we have now worked on the revenue side of things, it's funny because now relationships is opened. They're able to spend more time with loved ones. They're able to network more. They're able to do different things that they weren't able to do. But it's all based on the positioning of how you actually break that out. And we can also flip it, because when I have my offer of helping podcasts grow and monetize, that is actually a relationship offer of network and status initially, but that also has a wealth relationship too. Because in the wealth relationship, we're using a podcast to generate more leads for their business and to drive more revenue for their business. So I increase the value of the problem that I solve by just connecting these 3 different components. Having 3 different components working together and looking at, okay, what is the surface level problem that I solve? I help companies increase their sales. Okay, when I increase their sales, I drive their wealth up. How does that affect the relationships? How does that affect the health? Is there an affiliation there? Because maybe not every offer can solve all 3 of the problems, but for the most part, if you're able to bring those in, this will be super important in solving that specific problem. So that's under the P section, okay? The next point here is attract. So under attract, we have how do we get traffic, okay? How do we get traffic to our offer? And this is when we can bring in what platforms we use. And honestly, guys, it does not matter what platform you use. You can use YouTube, LinkedIn, Twitter, X. You could stick your head out the window and shout about the problems that you solve, and you would get leads. Because in the attract, we're able to pull people towards us, okay? So my preference for this always is going to be podcasts. And the reason why we pick podcasts here, we have podcasts, but you might have YouTube, you might have X, and you might have IG. But the reason why we pick podcasts is because it builds a lot of trust and reciprocity. There's basically a relationship being built with the prospect when they're watching 7 hours of your content and they're coming into the ecosystem, Okay. This is basically how we're able to pull them in and be able to show them our values, who we are, what we work on, and why we should listen to you. Okay. Because if we don't have that, what happens is the 7 hours of trust we're building with our audience, that's 7 hours here, 7 hours here, 7 hours here, 7 hours here. Whereas 7 hours of a podcast is like 5 episodes. 7 hours of tweets is a lot of scrolling. So you're actually going to be doing a lot of scrolling to be able to get that up, get to that number. Whereas we can bring down that time very quickly with a podcast. So what we do is we attract the content here. We make sure that we have all the right problems that are being solved. We make sure that every piece of content that's coming out helps people solve that specific problem. So with this video, it's about how to increase your revenue without having to do all the bells and whistles of going viral and doing all the bullshit things you don't actually need to do online. Then, when this is done, we move on to the next stage. So we know that we have the problem, we know that we're attracting, and then we have income, okay? Income. How do we make money with this? How do we get people to come true, right? P-A-I. How do we get income to come in? Now, it's very simple. Instead of trying to sell 1,000 units at $10, just go high ticket. And the reason being is because when you do not have traffic, you only have so much people that can come into the ecosystem, okay? Let's say you're putting out YouTube videos. They're getting 100 views, 500 views, 1,000 views. You're putting out LinkedIn posts, getting 200 impressions, 500 impressions. All you need is the right person to come into the ecosystem. They will come into the ecosystem as a result, and they will see, okay, Darren kind of knows a thing or two about podcasts. He understands production, he understands growth. They'll see what's happening there. And as a result, you can sell high ticket because it's going to be a lot easier to sell this, okay, at 5,000, okay, 5K, versus trying to get 100 people or 1,000 people at whatever the fucking multiple is, basically. So that's 1,000 customers versus one customer. And that basically gives you the baseline to really ramp up your actual income, because this is how you're going to be able to get your 15K, 20K, 30K from just having a handful of clients. This is your solo business, very single business, your experience being exchanged as a consulting offer, okay? This is your 3-4 step framework that helps X prospect get to Y. Now, when people come up and they ask you, hey, can you do this? Can you do this? Can you do this? You need to be careful to really razor in what your offer is. Because if you help people improve sales, and then you use content to attract it, the income then that you're generating is basically consulting gigs that are helping people increase their revenue with sales, okay? So you want to keep very laser focused on this. But you might be asking, well, there's a capacity. Of course there is. Under the theory of constraints, there's going to be a capacity with everything. There's even a capacity with mid-ticket and low-ticket because there's only so much people in the market, right? So the constraint on here is going to be time, right? So this is where we have the 5K initially that drives up a lot of engagement. But we want to maximize, okay, time. So we want to make sure that we are able to fill our time with the right offers, with the right customers, with the right green and red, green clients effectively, no red clients. So within here, we can get up to maybe 6, 7, maybe 8 clients, okay? And again, we are finding our feet here. This is really important. We're working with clients. We know that, okay, they have this problem with sales. We are therefore taking that information back with us into their track stage. We're creating content based on the objections people have when they don't buy. We're creating content based on how you're actually helping people with the problem that you're solving. We're just basically using this flywheel to go back and forth and back and forth and back and forth. So at this point, we have the problem that we're solving, we're attracting, we have the income. Now, you will build this up to the point that you will feel overburdened. So let's look at how this happened with Vox. We didn't have a website, we didn't have anything. We got a ton of clients. The clients we started selling in the beginning were 5K, 6K, 7K. These clients are still with us today, by the way. They've spent hundreds of thousands of dollars over the course of the years because we're giving them an amazing service as a service-based provider. But this obviously has a cap. So within our agency, it transformed more into a media company. So we moved from an agency model into a media company whereby we started to work with these companies, generate more revenue for them, generate more revenue for us, and build a stronger brand together, okay? At this point, we had a ton of systems being built, okay? It's really important. So I brought in a COO. We had multiple editors, designers, production people, and we had a lot of really good systems in here. So we got to 30K a month, 40K a month, 50K a month, just based off brute force, basically, leveraging high ticket. Okay. Selling high ticket, looking at nothing less than like really 4K, unless it's a super small piece of work. These are reoccurring deals from 6 months to 12 months because we were helping them solve more problems. First, it was a podcast, then it was their email, then it was LinkedIn, then it was ghostwriting for IG. But it was always the same thing, the same problem that we're solving, okay? But the last point that comes from here, and this is how we completely skip all the low ticket BS, is nurture, okay? Because under nurture for N and for nurture, we have the model that we're able to scale. This is a really important point because sequencing for your offer is going to matter way more than anything else, okay? The sequence in which you offer products and services to people. It is a super important point. So again, we had a high ticket offer here that we still run to this day. This is high ticket, done for you style service. But then we were able to add in different things. Like we help build their backend, their revenue on the backend. We help them build lead magnets, landing pages, all that kind of stuff. And then at that point, we have a huge system in the backend that we were able to sell into group. So this is group, or otherwise known as one-to-many. This is when we moved into the incubator. So our incubator is the education business. This is how we're helping podcasters, helping creators grow and monetize their audience. And how we're doing it is through our education business. This allows us to scale up, be able to add in a lot of the different verticals that we don't have, let's say, in here. So here, it's going to be 5K a month, okay? And then basically your LTV is 30K, 40K, 50K, depending on the client and so on. But you're restricted. So the client list is restricted, okay? Unless you want to go super big. We have a capacity limit under the theory of constraints on how much clients we can work unless you want to hire like 600 people, okay? Which I don't really want to do. Whereas here, under nurture, everyone that was unqualified for our high ticket offer is now qualified for our group model, okay? Because not everyone can pay 5K a month, but maybe, just maybe, we can get people from maybe 3K a month. So this could be, let's say, 3K to 5K. And that's one-off, okay? That's your one-off model. We're helping people through a group coaching model that we're able to work with them through once or twice a week. We're able to give them a lot of training material. We're giving them masterclass events by industry experts. We're showing them exactly how we're scaling up, and we're showing them exactly how they can do this. So we have, this is called the incubator for us, okay? So the incubator, okay? And the positioning here is super important because if you think about it, these people up here, they're going to be at 7 or 8 figures a year that we're selling to. These people down here are going to be 0 to 6 figures a year, okay? So these guys are making anywhere between 1K a month, 8K a month, maybe even like 15K, 20K a month, okay? But everything that's in the nurture aspect here are the people that were unqualified from here, and then the people then that still want to work with you. Because we still solve one problem, which is growing and monetizing podcasts. But the mechanism and modality that we solve it on depends on their actual financial situation. Because just because someone is qualified, because they're invested, they want to work with you, doesn't mean they're financially invested and financially qualified. That's a big caveat here. You need to understand what does that mean? Like, how does that work, okay? So now we have the incubator, which is a program that solves a lot of problems, okay? We've also taken this a step further, and we have Apex. So Apex is our next offer, which is helping people go from 6 to 7 figures a year, okay? And what this means is through the systems that we've built, helping people go 0 to 6 figures, helping companies scale from 6, 7, and 8 figures, we can now teach that in our education business of Apex, helping people go from 6 figures to 7 figures. And this is invite only. It's very exclusive. It's very difficult to even qualify for it because we want to make sure that we're adding the right things in there. But it all comes back to solving this problem. What's the painful problem that we solve? So the painful problem that we solve up here is people's revenue, time. The problem we solve down here is getting started, being able to do that. And the problem we have down here is that we're scaling up from 6 to 7 figures. And it just depends on the personality type, okay? So over time, what happens is our agency grew from being just a tiny little agency that does some bare production into growing podcasts, okay? Then into monetizing podcasts, which is the media company. So that's products, services, done for you as well. And then into the education business, which is helping people who are getting started or caught in a rut and want to improve. And then helping people who want to scale up. So they're literally going the full time span that most people will actually never get to. So then the question just becomes, where do we want to position ourselves? Because we have now got to the point, and you will get to the point whereby these are all working in unison. The problems that you put out, how you attract people, the income you generate, and how you nurture more people in your actual business. This model will just grow and scale around you. And the best part about this is that this doesn't take like many years to build out, right? You need to actually just do this immediately. You can open up a spreadsheet right now, picture out what problem you solve, see how you can attract people, create content, create an offer. And the beauty of offers is that they're very flexible. They're nimble. They're meant to move like water, okay? If you had to build a product, that will take many months. That could take even a year to build. You wouldn't even know where to begin. But the beauty of a consulting and agency offer is the fact that you can get moving straight away. You can literally get moving straight away. You can do it as a solo person in the beginning, and then you're able to build those systems. The systems you build are what's most important because that allows you to bring on more clients. That allows you to turn it into more of a coaching mechanism and education business. Without documenting it, you're going to be in fulfillment hell. You're going to be in fulfillment hell. But the beauty is we've had many clients and many customers do it, okay? So they build agencies, they build SEO agencies, they've turned them into education businesses afterwards. It's a very streamlined process, but you need to understand what's the intent, what's the painful problem that we're solving. How do we solve it? How do we turn it into an actual product and service down the line? Now, to go a little bit deeper on this, check out my origin story down below. So this is the next video down below, which will show you exactly how I've actually done this and even the mechanism that I did it. It wasn't pretty for me. It might look pretty on the board, not so much anymore, but it's basically exactly my story from going from 0 to $1 million a year in my 20s and how we've actually scaled up now much further than that, hitting $200,000, $250,000 a month. So have a consider about this, write out the points, and if you find this valuable, feel free to check out that video and also come and speak to the team at Vox. See you next video.